Alright, so this is my run of Vampire Survivors. My most recent run, which was last night. I'm recording this the day after. I didn't have my mic on whenever I recorded through OBS. But as you'll see, I actually started the recording partway through my run because things started getting crazy. I had just unlocked the library the run before. And so this was actually my first or second run in the library. And just over 10 minutes in, I realized that I was becoming very overpowered very quickly. And so I figured I'd get far in this run, but I wasn't sure just how far. It was a pretty crazy run. Yeah, so that little pause was actually me turning on OBS. I used the opportunity picking up a treasure chest to start recording. This was also kind of the first time that I experienced getting multiple level ups, like back to back. It was really strange, but cool. I mean, strange in a good way, just because playing the forest level, I believe that's what it's called. The level ups would be far between. At least the way I played. I'm not very good at this game yet. Haven't played it a whole lot. So this run was purely skill. The RNG was just in my favor. So pretty much after I got the Bible, oh yeah, this was my first time getting a triple treasure chest too. I've had really bad luck in this game up until this run, really. But anyway, after I got the Bible, things really started getting insane. Enemies really had just a hard time getting to me. Right before this, I'd made my way all the way to the left side of the screen. And I'm sure there's some RNG in it, but over there was a collectible that, I had a green arrow telling me to go pick it up. And when I got there, they were these enemies that threw projectiles. And right before I started recording, I actually defeated all of those enemies. I got the fire breath power up. I'm not sure what it's called. And was able to destroy them pretty quickly. And from there, it just kind of ramped up as far as how fast I was gaining experience, how much damage I was doing. One of the things that I'm really impressed about with this game is just how many enemies and projectiles and collectibles can be on screen with little to no hiccups. There was a few times I noticed like a frame or two would drop, but it was more towards the end when things would get really crazy. But in fights like these, there wasn't any sort of choppiness even. The video makes it look like it was worse, I guess, than it was. But no, the game was running smooth as butter this whole time, which really helped with the game feel. Like it felt great to just mow down tons of enemies. So yeah, on top of getting like XP really quickly, I was also getting just tons of chests. The combination of like projectile speed, piercing, and then sending multiple projectiles, it's just completely busted. Here's another one of those instances where I leveled up a couple times in quick succession. It happened so fast, I really couldn't tell why. I was kind of surrounded by the gems, so maybe that was why. Oh, another power-up that I had was the shield power-up, the Laurel. It's not that anyone could really get in close, but when they did, I mean, it barely mattered, because that would just eat the damage. And it would, because my cooldowns were so low, it would just come back immediately. So this was the first time that a Medusa appeared. And my strategy was kind of to run from her, because I didn't know exactly what she would do. And let the crosses kind of do backsplash damage, as well as the mage staff, which whenever she got too close, it would target her, which seemed to work out pretty well. She was pretty slow, and all of my attacks were doing just, it seemed like more knockback than normal. But I guess with all the boosts that I had, maybe it was just, it's where I was at the time. So one thing I do like about this level versus the, I guess the jungle level, is that enemies don't appear at the top or bottom of the screens. So you can't be completely enclosed. And I think that's what really helped me out. Because especially at the start of the run, the footage I didn't capture, I was just running to the left. And since I had this character who automatically has multiple projectiles, and it was the first level mobs, I was one-shotting them and just able to run to the left with little to no resistance. I'd have to change which path I was on from time to time, like, vertically, going up and down. But overall, it wasn't difficult to make my way over there. So about this time, when I was hitting level 40, it was it was getting hard to choose, I guess, which power-ups to get. And so I just started focusing the one that I'd leveled up the most at that point, if it was on the list. And if I didn't have one that I'd already leveled up on the list, then I'd either use something that was in favor of projectiles, so more projectiles, projectile speed, damage, or I think that was it. I wasn't really interested in getting something new at this point, because I figured my run was going to end really soon. Because before this run, I actually had only... My longest game was, I think, 11 or 12 minutes. And it had grown, incrementally up to that point. So, my first run was 5 or 6 minutes because I was learning the game. And then my last couple of runs were around 10 minutes until I get swarmed and surrounded. And then my very last game was, 11 or 12 minutes where I was starting to get more familiar. I had more characters. I bought a couple of power-ups. And so I was just able to withstand a little bit more. As well as, good RNG. I believe it was mostly like ghosts. That one run I did that had, that was around 12 minutes. So they were pretty easy to kill. So one thing that I really noticed about this game that's pretty interesting is that a lot of the weapons at the first level aren't particularly useful. And one that I thought this about was the axe. You know, you throw one axe and it had a pretty long cooldown. You throw it upwards and then it'd fall downwards, so unless you had enemies below you or like really close, it wasn't all that useful. But in this scenario where I'm throwing multiple ones and the damage is super stacked, it was great for crowd control. I remember getting to the 20-minute mark and thinking, there's no way that I'm going to be able to survive much longer. And so I started to get a little bit reckless and just going into hordes and, you know, not trying to take damage necessarily, but just trying to, I guess, I don't know, just being more aggressive because I figured the end was near, so I might as well just play to the fullest. And that was when this boss showed up, and I was like, you know what, never mind. Maybe I don't want to end my run yet. And so I was playing a little bit safer, using my technique from before where I was just kind of doing a spread of the knives. And, you know, it became apparent that even when I was playing aggressively, it was really just difficult for the game to kill me at this point. And forget killing me, but just taking damage wasn't really something that was happening anymore. You know, like these waves of skulls, I'm sure are meant to just really disrupt whatever you have going. And it just wasn't, still wasn't enough. So this was also the first run where I evolved any of my equipment. I think by the end of the run, I evolved at least 2, if not 3 pieces of equipment, just from maxing them out. So yeah, upgrading the bracers after having multiple different projectile attacks, you know, it was just completely broken. I don't know if the bracers. No, they did. It was attack speed. It wasn't the speed of the projectile that time. So yeah, I guess that's similar to cooldown, where you just attack faster. But I guess it's a little bit different numbers wise. So yeah, I didn't invest anything into armor since I had the shield and the Bibles. I hadn't been hit in quite some time, so I figured that getting the breastplate, the armor upgrade, this would have been a waste. You know, since this was the farthest I'd gotten, I wasn't certain if there would be a time where I would stop getting upgrades, and so I didn't want to waste any of my selections on getting something new, filling a slot, if I could, you know, do something else. One thing that was kind of odd, I think the game was still trying to balance itself. So there would be times where maybe it was actually thinning out because it was sending stronger enemies, but I was, I guess, a little bit stronger than it anticipated. Or my projectiles off screen were actually killing enemies before they made it into frame. I'm not certain. Probably a mixture of both, if I had to guess. I'd be really curious to know how the AI works. If there is some sort of producer, in the background that's taking note of how well I'm doing and sending enemies in based on that. Or if there's just, once you reach certain milestones, if it just starts to send in new enemies that way. So yeah, getting the upgraded knives really didn't help the game's chances of killing me. So it's a pretty cool mechanic that as you get stronger, like you just get absolutely busted as far as how powerful you can become. And then here later in the game, getting back to back upgrades really wasn't doing the game any favors. So sorry for the quality just getting absolutely ruptured right now. But having so much on screen, I guess OBS. I was really scared it was going to crash because there was a little choppiness in the game, as well as OBS was just, it was doing its thing over there. But now watching it back, I'm surprised it didn't crash. I guess it looks pretty bad, but again, props to the developers. This many enemies on screen, even in a 2D game, with the projectiles, it's still impressive. So here's another evolution. Evolved the cross. Next it became these kind of like light swords, I guess, that just kind of fly through the air. I wasn't really sure when their damage frames, I guess, were active. They were just kind of floating around. But they seem to be cutting through the waves. It was a little bit easier to track when they were just the crosses because, they'd fly away from me and then back past me, and I'd see, enemies get hit. So it was just a little bit harder to tell. Among, the other things going on, I can't really blame the game for that. All the damage numbers popping up. And so here's the point where I actually stopped getting upgrades and could only choose between getting health and coins. And by this point, I still hadn't taken any damage, even running directly into crowds. So I was just grabbing coins. I didn't really see a reason to eat the floor chicken just yet. And even the chests were giving me money bags. And this is another moment where my heart sank into my stomach because earlier Medusa, when she showed up, she was a boss. And now only Medusa's in the room with this witch. was really, really telling of just how hard the game was trying to kill me. The anguish, though, quickly dissipated because, I was able to run directly into the swarms with little resistance as usual. One thing that would have been nice, there it might be a way to do it. I didn't know how to. Was just to skip these cutscenes once you get to a certain point, because there was really no build up. I mean, it was either going to give me chicken or coins at that point, and so it wasn't as exciting as during the run. And there you go. You could see the game wasn't even subtle that time. You could see the enemies spawning on screen pretty much, just coming to end my run. And at this point, I wasn't sure just how long the game would let me run. And so I figured, let's see if I can go an hour type, because I just didn't know. So, and I was also getting tired. It was about 1:30 in the morning. I had already planned for this to be my last run, but then it just kept going. So, I was willing, if the game would allow me, to just run infinitely, pause it, and then come back this morning and continue the run. And just record, I guess, hours of a single run because I couldn't be killed. So it was interesting to see just how far the game would let me go. And I was always able to keep, a little space around myself. That was the first time I think my shield came all the way down. I was completely vulnerable for a couple seconds, and so I kind of panicked, and this is where I developed the strategy of just throwing knives in a circle. And it worked really well. Along with the Bibles continuously circling me, nothing could get past the barrage of knives. They had the piercing, so they would go through a couple of lines of enemies, and I'd be safe if I got hit. And so I wasn't sure at this point. I guess I hadn't seen the Medusas as much, just more of these green guys. So I wasn't sure if the game was if these guys are actually stronger or if it was just a numbers game at this point. And that was when these moss monsters showed up, and as well as the tree monsters that were actually in the beginning of the game. So it's like everything recycled, and so I guess the game was just sending everything it had at me just to try to trip me up. And so, OBS was really struggling to capture it, but I had to go back to my strategy of just circling. And so for my last few moments, the only reason why I survived was because of the chicken. And so right at the 30-minute mark, the Grim Reaper comes. And he even had to hit me a couple times because of just how strong I guess I was. I had the shield. And I'm curious about if it's possible, if you get all the power-ups, you play long enough, if it's possible to kill the Grim Reaper. Because now I'm just really curious. So as you can see through the cycling of my achievements, I evolved quite a few things. I got a lot of things for the first time. Like I said, I hadn't played the game a whole lot before I got this run, so it was kind of early on. in my gameplay. So one thing I thought of after the run was to actually go into my collection and power-ups and stuff, just to, I guess, show just how little I had going as far as when I got into the fight, and just how great the RNG was on my side. I had 1 check in might, I had 2 in the magnet, 1 check in recovery. So they definitely helped, and without them I likely would have died. But, you know, imagine having more. 30 minutes would have been a breeze at that point. And it already kind of was, just because of the great RNG I had. So anyway, that's Vampire Survivors. Highly recommend this game if you haven't played it. It's on Steam, still in early access, I think. Thanks for watching.